Hi, welcome back to Beyond the Pew and welcome to Advent. This is one of my favorite seasons in the church year. It's a time of hope, a time of waiting, and a time of expecting the Lord to come. So we're celebrating the Lord coming as a baby. We're also celebrating the Lord coming in a new way, in a special way, into our hearts this Christmas, and also preparing for his second coming. So I don't know if you're a baseball fan, but about a month ago, everyone in the world was a baseball fan when the Chicago Cubs were in the World Series. They had an 108-year drought from the last time that they won the World Series. Just to put that in perspective, cars were barely a thing the last time they won the World Series. So it was just really cool as a sports fan, as a baseball fan, as a fan of life, because there were millions of people watching this baseball game. And being excited for this team to finally win the World Series. If you're not familiar, they took it to Game 7 in the World Series. It went into extra innings, and they finally won. And all the Cubs fans who had been, all these players, the owner, the people who have been waiting and waiting for all of their life, and then knowing that their predecessors had waited for 108 years for this to happen. It was just a beautiful moment, and it was fun to watch and very, very exciting. And that was right before Advent started. And I was looking at it saying, okay, they were waiting for 108 years. We're about to go into this season of waiting for Jesus to come at Christmas in this time called Advent. So I looked at it and I said, okay, well, who else waited for a long time? Well, the Israelites waited for quite a while for Jesus to come the first time. So if in the beginning of the Bible, in Genesis, Adam and Eve were in the garden. They had perfect unity with God. They walked with God. And if you know the story, they sinned. They got kicked out of the garden. And as God was explaining to them the consequences of their actions, many negative things. They couldn't be in the garden anymore. Adam was going to have to work, all these sorts of things. But he promised them in Genesis chapter 3 that he's going to send a Savior. He was going to send someone who would crush the serpent's head and bring them back to this unity that they had with him in the garden. And the whole story of the Old Testament is the story of the Israelites waiting and hoping and anticipating this king coming. Abraham was an old man who was promised a son, he was promised descendants, and he had to wait and wait and wait for that promise to finally be fulfilled whenever he got a son. Noah was told that there was going to be a flood, and he had to prepare and get ready by building a boat and gathering the animals. And then for those 40 days, he just had to wait and trust in the Lord and be patient and know that what the Lord said he would do. And then after those 40 days, we all know that the waters receded. So what does this hoping look like for us in Advent? Well, the definition of hope is a confident expectation based on trust in God. And this contrasts with what we think about hope. It's like, oh, I hope the Cubs win the World Series this year, or oh, I hope I'll get an A on my test, or oh, I hope I'll get a job promotion. That hoping is just, oh, that's out of my control. It's something I don't have to do anything about it. But hope in the Christian sense is confidently and expectingly wanting something to happen or asking for something to happen. So when we say that we hope in the resurrection, we are confident and expecting that Jesus will come back again. We are confident and expectant that when we ask him to come into our heart, that he will. So this hope is an active word. It's whenever this Advent season, it isn't just a time of like, oh, I guess we'll just wait for 20-something days until Jesus comes at Christmas, then we can all have a lot of fun. It's a time of preparation, a time of prayer, and what it really is like a mini Lent. It's a time where we can rededicate ourselves to prayer and to our relationship with Christ. So the image that I want you to have for this Advent is not a hope of like being in a parked car. It's like, oh, I hope God leads me closer to him and leads me down the path that he wants me to. And having that car with the parking brake on and your foot on the brake. What we need to do is to work towards it and to be active in our faith and active in our waiting, active in our hope. So take that parking brake off, take your foot off the brake and start moving and trust and expect that he will lead you in the right way this Advent. So until next week, I hope that you have a great Advent, and we will see you again on Beyond the Pew.